Okay, on to part two. Everyone will starve if you only plant such a small number of seeds. Rereading the almanac, it looks like the seeds line actually describes ranges of seed numbers. The values on the initial seeds line come in pairs. Within each pair, the first value is the start of the range, and the second value is the length of the range. So in the first line of the example above, where you got 79, 14, 55 and 13, this line describes two ranges of seed numbers to be planted in the garden. The first range starts with the seed number 79 and contains 14 values. So basically starts at 79 and then the following 14 values are in that range. Now, rather than considering 4 seed numbers, you need to consider a total of 27 seed numbers. In the above example, the lowest location number can be obtained from seed number 82. Yada 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 yada. Consider all of the initial seed numbers listed in the ranges on the first line. What's the lowest location number? So, this is what really throws you in for a loop in part 2. Let me come back to this. So initially we have 20 seeds in part 1. Now, I mean, if you look at every other number, this is like the length of the range. We're talking like each of these seeds have like, okay, there's 71 million seeds in this range. There's 125 million seeds in this range. So our typical sort of approach of just looping through each seed isn't going to work. Or it might work, but it's going to take a really long time to compute that. So instead of right now, if I run it again, instead of thinking of each seed as a singular value that we then pass down through these ranges, we actually now need to start thinking of it as ranges that pass down through ranges. And we kind of want to keep it in a range format the whole way through up until the end, to avoid having to loop over the millions and millions of seeds. If that makes sense. So, let's just correct our parsing. So at the moment when we're parsing seeds, we're just going over each one and adding that to our we can actually reuse this ID range, I think. So I'm going to put in here categories seeds. And we will no longer need this, right? We no longer need the seeds array, because the source and the destination is essentially going to be a seed to seed, right? Well, I'll just call it seeds. So I'm going to move this up here. And then, well, I'm going to do a seed index here, which is going to be 0. And so here's the parser, skip word seeds. Here we go. Put that there. And while parser is not end, we're just going to get a number. We're going to do our seed ID begin. Here we go. So we'll go, okay, if seed I modulo 2 equals 0, so if it's a even, if we're counting from 0, 0, 1, this is odd, this is even. Even, we'll say our seed, yeah, this comes down. Well, okay, our seed ID begin is equal to the number. Otherwise, our seed range len is equal to number, and then our category is going to be seed. Category ID is 0. Destination is going to be our seed ID begin. Same with seed ID begin and our seed range len. And then we will try almanac dot ID ranges append this ID range. There we go. So the seed category ID is this. There we go. I think I can put this now, and this will be our first. There you go. And then this needs to change. So right now, to do new lowest location calculation, that all needs to change because this is now deprecated. Right. And then the way we are drawing seeds. Needs to change. Potentially. Which is here. This is all deprecated. Will this build? No. So we could say, okay, our map categories is going to be equal to categories first map category to the end. So we can do that. I don't know why that's crashing. Ah yes, because we are trying to cast lowest location ID, which is currently really big. So I'm just going to say equals 0 for now. Zig build run. So that still all works. Our seed to soil isn't working. But why? Why aren't we getting the lines on seed to soil? I'm going to call this index. Category ID is going to be the first plus index. There we go. And then this just becomes index. No. Get baselines for category. There we go. That's working again. And then we want to draw the seeds. And that's pretty easy. So this will just become, okay, let me undo all this. So for self the almanac ID ranges, ID range, what we'll do is if ID range dot category does not equal seed category ID, we will break because they will all be at the top of the array. Otherwise, const seed ID is just the ID range source ID begin. That should all still work. Oh, sorry, I forgot to put my camera back to that the whole time. Okay. What's wrong? Have I got the wrong? It's source. Yeah, source ID begin. Oh, it's the full word. Or we can just continue. I'm probably not parsing the... Yeah, I need to do seed I plus equals 1 at the end of each loop. That then breaks, probably because we need to start at the first map category. Let me do this in our debugger so when it crashes we know why. Get baselines for category. Category ID. Minus first map category ID. Because our category ID is coming in at 0. Because we're subtracting 1 from it. Because we need to check if category ID is greater than or equal to is greater than the first map category ID. And that's now working again, which is good. So now, at the moment, I was assuming that the seeds were just like a single value, but they're actually ranges. So let's draw that range. So our seed line end needs to be plus. So our const seed len ID range dot range len. So it's just seed ID plus seed len. So now we're getting the actual range. Okay, so here is my thinking. Say this range it would be useful if I actually highlighted the ranges as well as just the line. But if this range of seeds entirely fits inside one of these map ranges, so imagine this highlighted range was wider than this range, then it's fairly trivial to solve. We can sort of pass through this range through the map as an offset to the destination ID. And if that is true for the next map, for example this massive range here, this range just nicely fits and gets remapped here. So we can just sort of remap the starting position of this range and follow it through. Where it gets tricky is, for example here, where this range actually crosses over multiple ranges. In which case we then need to break this range up into 2 parts, potentially up into 3 parts if it's entirely wider than the range it's on. So let me draw that. It'd be easy if I draw a diagram for that. Okay, so let me explain. So say we got a source range. We've got our seed range. Let me use the color yellow, right? So we got our seed range here. And then this could be mapped into a source range. And this sort of goes from there and then to there, right? And then if I get the orange, you've got, let me make that smaller. So that obviously maps to that range. But the problem is, if I sort of do that, if I cut through there. So let's let me zoom in. So we're going to say let this be the seed seed end, seed start and end, so SA to SB. Now only this portion overlaps, so this here. So if I'm going to do this as the input, so I'll call this I. Tell you what, let me undo all this. I'll call this S1 and S2. This will be I1 and I2. And then our output, which is output 1 and output 2. So for this range here, we know this range here is going to be I1. Oh, why is it not? It's behaving a bit weird. Sorry, my tablet's playing up. Just using my mouse. Okay, so we got I1 to S2, and then we'll also have to split up. There we go, it's working again now. No, why isn't it working? This region here is going to be S1, I can do that better, to I1 minus 1. So we don't want to include the I1 index. So we chop it up into 2 pieces. Problem is, we can also have this case where, let me again get yellow. You can have a case where the input range, and again the actual output range doesn't matter so much. Essentially that maps to there, that maps to there. So this input range, oh wait, I've done it the wrong way around. You want the seed range to be a lot longer. So yeah, 1, 2, 3. So there's this middle portion that maps to this range, but then we need to chop off this, the front and back, to then be processed for other potential ranges. And then if we do that again, so we've got S1 over here, S2 over here, I1 and I2. So this range here is just going to be S1 to I1 minus 1. This range over here is going to be just I1 to I2 minus 1. And this range here is going to be I2 to S2 minus 1. So actually this here is to S2 minus 1. So we'll need some array. We could potentially, some array to put these into, potentially mutate the seeds. But let's have a go at that. So I actually think it makes more sense if, instead of storing the seeds in this ID ranges, I'll recreate that seeds again, but it will be still be an ID range array. 256. I'm going to bump this up to 1024 possible entries. That's okay. That simplifies this because I no longer need that again, so I probably don't need this first map category, so I can don't need that seed category ID either. So for parsing the seeds, we'll just put in their seeds. We don't actually care about the ID. So we'll leave that at 0. This will just be 0, 0 again. We no longer need to subtract that. So we're actually just going to undo our map categories. So this can just become categories. Category ID just becomes the index. So again, I can just do category ID there, undo that. And the same for this. So we'll just go over seeds. So this is going to be the seed range. We don't need to continue, and this will be seed range. There we go. Again, this is just from 0. It's greater than 0. And let's just make sure that still works. It doesn't. Got seeds. We need to init that ID range array, init 0. And then when we're processing these seeds, we're actually going to append it to the seeds array. So that's still all working. So now we need to, as we process this, okay, so what we'll do is, while our almanac seeds len is greater than 0, we are going to get the seed range. So that's going to be try almanac seeds pop. Actually, we can do this, can't we? There we go. Pop or null. Remove and return the last element from the slice. Then we need 3 cases. So case 1 is the entire seed range fits inside source range. Case 2 is the end half of seed range. Oh, only end half of seed range overlaps source range. Case 3 is only front half of seed range overlaps source range, and case 4 is only middle, I'll say portion of seed range overlaps source range. So how do we check that? So we will need our const seed begin equals seed range dot source ID begin, and our const seed end equals seed range dot source ID end, that function we made. So we then need to loop over, like we did here, our categories. So we'll say var category ID equals 0. So starting with the first category, we'll say not 4, yeah, 4 almanac dot ID ranges const slice. This is an ID range. If ID range dot category ID doesn't equal category ID, will continue. Otherwise, we need to check here. Const map ID, I will say source ID begin is just equal to the ID range. Source ID begin, and the source ID end is equal to the ID range. Source ID end. So if seed begin is greater than or equal to source ID begin, and seed end is less than source ID end, we don't need to do -1 because that's handled by less than or equal to. I'm just doing less than. So that's our case 1. Else, we now need to do our case 2. So that's the entire seed range fits inside the source range. If only the end portion of the seed range, this still needs to be true. But this would need to be less than. So we can actually start to reason about this a bit nicer. So we'll say seed begin inside equals seed begin greater than or equal to source ID begin, and seed end inside is equal to seed end is less than source ID end. So case one just becomes, okay, if the seed is inside, seed begin is inside and seed end inside. Otherwise it is if not seed begin inside and seed end inside. Else if seed so that's case 3. Else if seed is not inside and it's not, the end isn't inside, means they must be both outside. And that's case 4. Moving the if. Okay, so there's our 4 cases. So this is the easy case. If the seed range is entirely inside, we can do the ID range destination ID from source ID, which is just the seed begin. So this is dest begin and dest end is just going to be dest begin plus the ID range dot range. Well, it'll be plus seed range dot range len. This could be a var we could just do, okay, seed begin mean, this should be const, it should never change, but the seed begin and end can. So it's just going to be the seed len. And then we'll do that, yeah, 40 to, what was it, almanac category count. Almanac category count, category ID. That's what I was doing there. And I was doing the, yeah, that destination was already doing this loop. So actually, we don't need that anymore. So it's going to loop all over, and then by the time it's finished, we will have this and then we can say, okay, our location ID is now just our seed begin. We can say, okay, if location ID is less than lowest location, then our lowest location ID is location ID. We don't actually need this lowest seed ID. I can get rid of this now. This deprecated. For now, I'm going to break out of these outer loops. Just so I can see if this compiles. It does not. Oh. Catch seed begin. So if this returns null, we'll just pass through seed begin. Oh, it's not catch, it's or else if it's a optional, right? Yeah. Other than this drawing thing, I can no longer draw any of that, so I won't. And then we've got an answer here, 260, 14 ends in 142. Let's just check the answer. So it looks way too high, but that's because we haven't considered all the cases yet. So what I'm going to do is set a breakpoint, and let's just walk through this and make sure we're doing it properly. So put a breakpoint here, press play. So if we set step over as F10. So this seed range, here we go. Our destination begin, our source ID begin 213888608. Let me just go back to here. I mean, already that's looking wrong. So if I just do almanac.seeds, these all look like wrong numbers to me. Why is that? So let me stop it and check our parser. So step over. So here's a number. Seed 63678. Yeah. So our seed ID begin is now this. We'll look at the number, and we should be going into, so here's our seed range len. Which is correct. And we append that. Or 260, ends in 142. Oh yeah, no, that's correct. And then the length is 125421. 125421. And the next one is 154684. 154684. 519283. Okay, so that was working. How come when I got here and I pop it? Oh, of course, because I'm looking at the last one. So if I go all the way to the end of this, 213608. Right. 213, yeah, 608, 367, 984, 9. Okay, so that is correct. And then we're going to go into here, into here. So our category ID should be 0. So we're going to get our first ID range. Our ID ranges. Oh, I see a problem. No, that's right. If ID range.category ID doesn't equal the category ID, we continue. So let me hit play again. I don't know why we're getting this. Three, 2, 4. We should be on the first one. 3, 4, 2. Yeah, 3, 4, 2. For whatever reason, when we're hovering over ID range, it's giving us the wrong memory location. I think that must be a bug with using this debugger with Zig, unfortunately. But if I hover over the actual variable we're storing into, we're getting the correct value. Source ID begin 342099. If I look at the first thing, source ID begin 342099. So we'll look at, tell you what, let me get rid of that. So we got seed begin inside is false, and seed end inside is true. So the end portion is overlapping with the source range. But that's going to break out of that loop, I think. Or not. Okay. So let's go back and let's also consider these other cases. So the range that actually fits in this case, which, you know, this range here will continue, but we'll basically at runtime construct a new ID range for the bit that we need to kind of chop off that doesn't overlap, so we can process that later. So seed begin becomes source ID begin. So actually, yeah, this does need to become a variable, the seed len. Seed end becomes, it stays the same, but seed len now needs to be seed end minus seed begin. Just to be explicit, seed end is seed end. If only the front portion, then, you know, basically seed begin remains the same. Seed begin just equals seed begin. Seed end becomes source ID end. And again, seed len just becomes seed end minus seed begin. And then it's the same here. So actually seed begin becomes source ID begin, and seed end becomes source ID end. And in fact, because this is pretty much constant, we can hoist these out. That should be happening on all of them. I'm going to get rid of these comments. And then I'm going to have two variables here, and that's sort of chop front equals false, var chop end equals false. So if we're at the end portion, we want to chop front. Otherwise we want to chop the end. Otherwise we want to chop both the fronts and the end. So if we chop the front, the chop range begin is going to be equal to so we actually need because I've changed seed begin and seed end now. I'm gonna do I'm gonna cache them. And then the chop range end is going to be equal to seed begin -1, because we don't want to include that first seed. Is going to be almanac the ID range. We don't care about any of that. In fact, if we don't, we'll make these optional so you don't have to. We can say source ID begin equals chop range begin, destination is the same, and the range len is just equal to the chop range end minus the chop range begin. And then I'm gonna try almanac dot seeds append chop range. I can do the same here when I'm doing categories. Get rid of this outer label. Overwrite, please. And then if chop end it's going to be seed end. Chop range end is going to be our previous seed end. We don't want to do -1 because we do want to go up to the very end. And then our chop range and our range len is equal to chop range end minus chop range begin. And we will append it. Okay, and let's run that. We've got an error, integer overflow. Let's see if I run this on the debugger, what happens. Here we go, process. This is because our seed end has become smaller than our seed begin, which shouldn't happen. And what's our category ID? 0. Almanac. Not seeds, not then. 9. Is this happening basically on our first iteration of the loop? Actually, we need another case. And that's if basically case 0, the entire seed range is outside the source range, in which case we just need to continue and look for another range. So that's basically if seed begin is less than source ID begin and seed end is less than source ID begin, or seed begin is greater than or equal to source ID end and seed end is less than, no, it's greater than or equal to source ID end so yeah. Do we just continue? We also need to know if we even found a range. Or do we? Because the seed begin and end will just fall through. Source ID, yeah, plus. Otherwise, the entire seed range fits inside the source range. So we do that. Otherwise, I think, yeah, we need to then get the destination, or else source ID begin. Seed end becomes seed begin plus seed len. Oh no, we need to know the new seed len. Don't we? Equals seed begin plus seed len. That makes sense, I think. If only the front portion of the, then seed begin becomes seed begin, or else seed begin. The new seed len becomes source ID end minus seed begin. Right. I'm going to put this at the top. So the new seed len equals seed end and then in the middle just becomes the ID range length. And seed begin just becomes the source ID begin. And again, seed end, which this is all the same pretty much in all cases. So yeah, you don't need that. So we can get rid of the seed end ones. Let's run that. We're still getting an integer overflow. Oh, this is okay. So it's happening when we chop. We're up to category 6. Okay, so it's actually done quite a lot. But our chop range end is smaller than our chop range begin. For whatever reason. 305. 334. So let's see, what's our pref seed begin and pref seed end? That's correct. And what's our seed, new seed begin and seed end? And if I do seed end minus seed begin, we have a positive number, which is good. So that's the length. So we want to chop the front. So our ID range, that's source ID begin, and our ID range plus ID range, that range len is that. So if I do pref seed begin minus ID range, or have I got source ID begin? Or is it? It is. So we've got seed begin, it's not inside, but end is inside. So that will be case 2. So our seed len, which is this, should equal to prev seed end minus source ID begin. That's the same number. And our new seed begin. So if I do prev seed begin, we have a new, different number here. And we're chopping front. So to chop the front, the chop range is the previous seed begin. Oh, this also needs to be previous, right? Is that the error? No, it's source ID begin. Oh, we don't -1 because we don't include the end. Chop range end, source ID. And if we chop in the end, it's just source ID end to previous seed end. I think. Let's just build that and just jump straight into running it. The answer is 0 still. Oh, because seed begin. Seed begin. We do get 0. Why? Oh, I guess the problem is as we're chopping it up, this range then needs to be chopped up, and then this range needs to be chopped up, and then this range needs to be chopped up. So we need to keep track for each of these new seeds we're putting in where we are in this pipeline, right? And I'm thinking just repurpose this category ID to store that information. Then it becomes the category ID here. We just remember what category ID we're up to. And we only do that from seed range dot category ID there. Does that make any sense? We still get 0. We might have to do this with our test data. Does it still work with our test data? Yeah, we just get much bigger. Let's give it a go then in our I'm gonna failed test. There it is. I want to be able to see that on the screen. So let's run it. Start stepping over. So seed begin, seed end, seed len. Let me get rid of all this. So our seed begin should be 55 because we're starting with this seed, and our seed len should be 13. So our seed end is 55 plus 13, which is 68. So we are now in here. So we're going to do our source ID begin, which should be 98, and our source ID end should be 100. Yeah. So we're looking if seed, this range, let me get rid of the seed len, 55 to 608, is it inside this range? Obviously it's not. So we should go to case 0, which we do. So we're going to update this, and I'm going to do seed begin inside, seed end inside. So here we are looking at the same seed begin and end, but our range is 50 to 98. So this is definitely inside, so we should be going to case 1, which is true. So we map seed begin, which would be 5 plus 52. Should we be mapping it to 57? Yeah. And we're gonna, the seed len should remain the same, which should be 13. And the seed end should be 57 plus 13. If I just do 57 plus 13, we get 70, which is good. Okay. And we're not going to chop the front. So our almanac seeds.len should only be one left. So we're going to pop it. I just think if we do find one of these cases, we can then break out of this. So I'm going to do that now. Well, we don't need to label it. I can just do found map range equals true. We don't even need to do that, right? This should be unreachable because we've handled all possible cases. So once we've done that, we can break. I'm just going to build that and run it again. Continue. Okay, so we had that. So let's look over, and then we will continue. Yeah. And then we have found what it maps to. So we do this, and we break. And then we go to the next category. Which at the moment was 0, and now it's 1. So source ID 15. We're here to soil to fertilizer. We got 15 plus 37. So soil seed is inside, but it's not outside. So that's case 3, right? Hang on, so that should have been... Oh, I see an error. C begin inside should be... Okay. Let me run through that again. Play. And play. So we've done all that, and then we skip over. There's this inside, so we go to case 1. Very, very good. We shall continue. Category ID is now 1. It's neither inside, so we will continue. So we got 57 to 70, 52 to 54. So it's neither inside, so that's going to go to that case. And then again, so we will just continue. And then on category ID 2, but our begin and end are the same. continue as F5. Okay, so the begin is inside, but the end is outside. So that should be case 3. So we go to case 3. So the length of this is source ID end, which is 61, to seed begin, which is 57. So that's the portion that is inside this range. Is that correct? Only the front portion of the seed range overlaps the source range. So actually it should be, yeah, that's right, 61, it should be 61 minus 57, which is 4. So seed length is now 4. Seed begin is now 53 from 57, because we are in category 2 here, and we are looking at this one, where the dest is 49. So if you were to do 57 minus 49, that's 8. No, it'll be 57 minus 53 plus 49, which gets to 53. So that makes sense. And we also want to chop the end. So we're gonna, seed end would now be seed begin plus seed len. Yep, that makes sense. So to chop the end, we expect the previous seed end was up to 70, so we expect 61 to 70. So we might need to +1 to this category ID, that's what I'm thinking. But now we can break from that and continue. And we're up to category 3. Now we're back to category ID 2. And we're getting 46 as an answer for the test data. So let me just... Can be obtained from seed number 82, which corresponds to soil 84, fertilizer 84, water 84, light 77, and location 46. So the lowest location number is 46. What were we getting? 46. So it's kind of working. It's just once we put in our actual data, it doesn't work. Oh no, it does work. 997 512 40. Is that our answer? 997 512. Oh, we got it working. I have no idea when it started working. That's cool. Now we just need to show that somehow, get our seeds ranges to work again. Okay. So it works, which is lovely. This all works. So yeah, it was having to store the category ID. So let's go down to our drawing code and let's draw that's because we've popped all the seeds from the array. So I'm gonna put in initial seeds. How do you know? The almanac seeds. We could just copy it for now. So when we compute the lowest, I'll do var seeds equals almanac.seeds. I think that creates a copy. There you go. So, okay, I've figured out how to do the rendering. So if you have a look at this now, you can hover over one of the seeds and it will show you all the paths. As you can see, it will branch and branch as more and more of the ranges as it filters down overlap into more and more sub-ranges. This one's the craziest, this one's the simplest. And then you can see at the bottom we're looking at the humidity to location, and then all we're doing is comparing the lowest, finding the lowest location value out of all of these, and that will give us our answer. So that's pretty cool. The way I managed this then, first of all, I changed the almanac structure a little bit. So I noticed our sort of list of seeds was slightly different than an ID range. So I've created its own struct for the seed range here. and each seed range will store its initial seed ID. So that's the initial beginning seed ID up at the top here. So the seeds is just now an array of those. I'm also storing a bunch of lines, so that's all these lines here. Each one, as in like a line from here to here, line from here to here, etc. I'm storing in an array. So as I go through, I'll show you as we compute the lowest location ID. And at the end of this, so I'm storing, as I pop a seed from the array, I remember what its initial seed ID is. And then once we figured out what case this belongs to, we just go ahead and push a line to an array where we remember the category ID, so we know where in the Y position to draw that line. And we remember the initial seed ID, so I know when I'm hovering one of those initial seed IDs, I can just go through this list of map lines and just filter out all the lines that come from this initial seed ID, and then I can just sort of follow them to draw them. So I'll show you that down in the rendering code. So here, where we loop over the seeds and we're checking is the mouse over the seed, we're going to draw that initial vertical line from the initial seed down to the first map. And then we're just going to loop over all the lines, all the map lines. We're going to filter out any of them that don't have our seed ID set to the initial seed ID. And then again, we can just use that category ID we stored to get the two baselines for the source and the dest. And then it's pretty simple to just work out how to draw the line from source to destination, and then the line vertically down from destination to the next source in the next map, which is why we're just doing category ID +1 here. And that's how we get that. So there we go. Day 5 was pretty big. That was a beastly puzzle. I knew it was going to take a while, but I'm actually quite pleased with the result, and it's really cool to be able to see how all these branch out and fan out, and the ability to sort of hover over all the ranges and see how they map. It's really cool. I will obviously push this up to GitHub, so the code is available, and I will see you next time for day 6. Bye.